to shoot. Crossover. Up, under, and in! Houston and the Cougars with 33 wins and a number 3 seed are coming out of Tulsa, and they are heading to Kansas City in the Sweet 16.
It's over. The dream is alive for Houston. For the first time in 37 years, the Cougars are going to the Final Four.
Krisa gets it back. Three-pointer on its way. Air ball. Edwards has the rebound. An Arizona foul, and the Houston Cougars put a smile on the Dream's face.
Welcome to Scott Home Podcast, back here in what could still be called rarefied air for college basketball teams, right? Your Houston Cougar men's basketball team, if you're listening, you certainly know, has progressed to the Sweet 16 with 2 different wire-to-wire wins. One was a bit more decisive than the other, but I think you shouldn't take away from how comprehensively the Cougs outplayed as tournament veteran programs get in your 8-seed round of 32 opponent, the Gonzaga Bulldogs. That felt like a game much later in the tournament. I would say similar things about last year's game against Texas A&M, but I think unlike last year's game against Texas A&M, you were able to, if not as stress-free as maybe you, I, and every Cougar fan would have hoped, you finished off this opponent more comprehensively. Again, can't be overstated. A team that has so many tournament bona fides. Bobby, we are in the position that 300-something other college basketball fan bases would like to be right now, with our team guaranteed to be playing another week of basketball. How you feeling after those 2 wins?
Okay.
Okay.
I
no
wish there was a better.
I guess.
No, it's not the fact that like, oh, I'm not excited that we're in the Sweet 16.
We survived the team that you said was the one that was the most stress-inducing for you, and your reaction's okay.
Absolutely, but the reaction of okay is like, there's been a problem all season. Not all season, for the beginning part of the season that concerned us. And it was, this team wasn't finishing teams off. Right? You saw that problem with Auburn, you saw it with Alabama, you saw it with San Diego State. And it kind of popped up a little bit here, and I think it's okay to be a little concerned that while they are, Gonzaga is a top 10 KenPom team and arguably by every advanced metric better than the team that we just played, or better than the team we're going to play.
You are right. They were better than SIUE. I don't know if that's a huge insight, but you're technically correct.
They are, according to KenPom and things like that, better than a Purdue team that we are about to face in the Sweet 16. I'm very excited for the win. But man, you kind of want to see the Cougars kind of put a foot on the throat there and do things a little bit more decisive when you're up as decisive as you were. Again, I'm not going to nitpick and be like, oh no, I'm pissed off. No, like, we're really excited. But to say that, like, holy shit, what an amazing game and what an amazing performance by the Cougars. It was for like 38 minutes. And then it got very sketchy. And to act and to only be excited, I think would be a little bit of a concern. I don't want to just be like, oh my God, I'm excited all the time. We're in the Sweet 16. That's very exciting. It's something to celebrate. But at the same time, I can watch that game and go, shit. I really hope that that if we're up 14 on Purdue or we are up 14 on Duke, that we put foot on throat and we end it and we don't have that to worry about.
I'm not saying it was this team's best finishing performance the last handful of minutes against Gonzaga. It's, if anything, I think it gives Sampson in a game where you led wire to wire and led a good amount of that wire to wire by a high single digit or low double digit margin. Sketchy as the last 2 or 3 minutes got, I will agree. I think it just, honestly, it gives you a team that just survived the scariest opponent. Like you said it, and I agree.
Oh yeah.
And do you still agree? Gonzaga, scariest team in your bracket that could have, that you realistically faced.
Yeah.
Like, not saying there aren't other good ones, but like Gonzaga was a really fucking scary 8 seed.
Uh-huh. And I will tell you, I'm still of the belief that the winner of that game is going to the Final Four. I mean, I don't want to look too far ahead. Tennessee as your 2 seed obviously is going to be really tough. But the matchup to me just feels a little bit better than this Gonzaga one did. The Tennessee game, if it comes to that, not to overlook Purdue, that game does look like it's going to be a 45-40 game kind of game there. But yeah, no, I think like you have pointed out, I have said that the winner of this game is going to the Final Four, and I still believe that. I still believe that had U of H lost this game, Gonzaga's probably a Final Four style team. So it's not saying that, oh man, that was awesome, or no man, I'm super pissed off and disappointed and we struggled against a bad team. I'm not saying that at all. It's just, if you're up 14, the fact they cut it down to 1 and get you in a spot where you're depending on guys to shoot 100% from the free throw line can be concerning. I don't think it's out of line to go, oh man, I really hope we don't do that again.
I would just say, if you thought Gonzaga was going to go softly into the night as a team that had been to over a decade straight of the Sweet 16 and has made deep runs this tournament, and it was a very veteran team, like Graham Ike, Nemhart, all those guys, like very, very veteran Gonzaga team too.
Yeah.
This was either going to happen like at the start of the second half or when it actually, like there was going to be a point where they were going to really test this Cougar team's mettle. Like I was ready for it. I wish it had them. Yeah.
You're definitely waiting for them to come with their haymaker, because it definitely felt at halftime that we had come out and we had put it on them. And the fact that it was, what was it, like 8 at halftime? Sorry, let me pull up the game.
It was 8, 35-27.
Yeah, 8 at halftime felt like that lead probably should have been bigger for U of H. And I think I texted you this, that like if I'm a Gonzaga fan, like if everything was flipped, I'm probably going, I'm glad we're down only 8. I would have wanted to get it to 6 or 5 maybe, but being down 8 at halftime after that first half, you wouldn't have been too disappointed if you were a Gonzaga fan.
No, and I think our concern in real time was also, okay, and this actually ended up not being, I think, much of an issue, but you needed someone besides LJ Cryer to start making shots. And that happened. Like J1 Roberts, among others, picked up the slack, because LJ just came in. That's what gave me a lot of confidence early in this game, was how good LJ Cryer. Like, okay, we got LJ Cryer at least making shots. If one other of your core guys has a decent night tonight, I think we can see this over the line. Even if early on when we were up, I think it was like 28-14 one point. And I just said to myself, I was like, this is cool, but I don't think this is going to be indicative of how this, it hasn't been this team's MO this year, the 24-25 team. Like you've seen them beat a lot of tough opponents, and I think beat opponents and be the better team at the end of the game. Like this isn't a team that lucked its way into a lot of wins and very few losses, but not a knockout punch kind of team. And then unfortunately, I wish this would have been one of those like, oh, okay, they pushed it to 1 point at the beginning stage of the second half, because we've seen that formula a lot this year. We've seen that game script a lot this year as teams cut it to a short deficit out of halftime or going into the half, and then the Cougars kind of put their foot on the throat, so to speak, to close. And this game, you looked like, and there were just so many points. I think the points where you'll look back on and be like, when you just couldn't get it past like 14 or so. And at the time, it's just like, okay, like, but you're still boat racing them. You're still holding them at arm's length. But like there were opportunities to truly land a knockout punch you didn't. And I guess and I think we mostly agree on this. I think that's your forward facing thing for the next game. Like not that Purdue's gonna be easy to knockout punch against, but if you have a chance, here. Like don't let Purdue hang around any more than at all possible, playing in kind of a semi-home environment. We'll get to Purdue when we get there. Not I promise I'm not segueing into any kind of we're gonna do a sum total of 8 minutes about the Gonzaga game here, but yeah, that's my big, like, you need to get better at the knockout punch, but also this game also, I think for 30, 36, 37, I think you said 38 earlier minutes, however many you would say before the Cougars had a not so sterling finish to the game. This game still reminds you what a good team this is. Like what an unbelievable, like that you were able to face one of the best offensive teams in the sport. You didn't finish as strong as you'd like there, but that was the most Gonzaga has struggled shot making this year. I would say, like, and that's just a testament to how the Cougars are one of the best teams in the country, and also your shot making. That's what excites me so much about this team. We haven't seen a Cougar team that's able to win with shot making the same way this one has and did last night.
Yeah, I think the ability for U of H to beat you off the dribble and just score buckets is in ways where you don't have sets necessarily. There's a lot of dribble handoffs in this offense, and that can be concerning a little bit later in the tournament, but to do it against a Gonzaga team and to outshoot a Gonzaga team that was coming into this game the 6th rated offense, and you kind of got into a what's the word I'm looking for? A shootout with them, and you won, right? If you're looking at this game, previewing this game, and your keys to victory were U of H, if U of H wins this game, what does it look like? You're looking at like a 70-67 game where it's knockout, drag out, but you won this game 81-75. You let Gonzaga score. Like, it's not like you held them just defensively claimed. You got into a shootout with them. And I'll take that, right? You look at St. Mary's, right? Their final WCC championship game versus St. Mary's. Sam, do you know what the score was of that game?
51. Yeah, I knew it was like St. Mary's will get you into those low scoring ones.
So, and you would see that and you would think U of H would get you into those low scoring ones, you know?
Yeah.
But like, when they've lost, it's games where they get held kind of to low scores. I mean, here's 2 where they didn't, but I mean, versus UConn, 77-71. You look at their Kentucky game where they lost 90-89. You don't hold them to low point totals very often. And we beat them at their game, not they beat us at ours. Like, if I would have told you Gonzaga beat us and the final score was 65, 63 Gonzaga, there's no way you would have thought that happened, because that would have been our game. But if I would have told you this game was 81-76, you'd have been like, oh shit, Gonzaga got out, pushed it. But that didn't happen. This was a game that shows that U of H can get buckets if they need to and beat a high scoring team.
Yeah, you and kind of to the Cougars' detriment, I thought Gonzaga late on, for the majority of this game was played at Houston's tempo. And I thought for a team that at times this season has let some of the quicker tempo teams really dictate terms, put the Cougars maybe in a position or positions they're not super comfortable in on the court, I thought most of this game was very much played at U of H's pace. I thought, unfortunately, at the very end, I thought Gonzaga maybe a little too late realized how they could speed up this game, or got desperate enough that they did some things to make the Cougars uncomfortable. Bad timing for a dry spell, which has been, I think, among this team's few weaknesses. But I mean, 65 possessions. I'm going through, I was going to say they played a low one against St. Mary's, but the majority of the Zags games this year were played at 70 plus possessions, which, okay, like, what's that number mean? I'm giving you a number. I'm not giving you context. Don't worry. Context here is on the way. You made this game more often than not get played at Houston Cougar pace. This was a Houston Cougar basketball game, but unlike whatever comes into your mind when you picture Houston Cougar men's basketball game, which, for a lot of years, as much as we love these two things, it was offensive rebounding and defense, like timely shots, timely offensive rebounds to extend possessions, and winning a tough brand of basketball. It's a basketball I have a great deal of affection for, but you were able to slow this game down, and you have LJ Cryer, you have Emmanuel Sharp, you have J1 Roberts, who in their own unique ways are able to get you those buckets. This wasn't like Milos Uzan's best game getting his own shot, but it was one of his best games in terms of assists output. Like it just tells you, even if you don't have Milos Uzan hitting his floater, like he did for great effect to you for, I think, a good chunk of the second half of the season, was a bigger part of the offense than even Milos Uzan optimists like you and I expected, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
That even if he has a bad game, like LJ Cryer still like you just there are too many things coming from too many different directions to really like, and that's never been something we've talked about great guards here, Bobby, but never like this plenty, I guess, when it comes to scores.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to something we've been talking about all year, right? I don't trust anybody to go get me a shot like I trusted Jamal Shed to go get me a shot, or any of the other Cougar great guards. Like, used to be able to just put the ball in Jamal Shed's hands and Rob Gray's hands, and you knew he was going to go get you a bucket. You don't have that guy this year that you just turn to for one bucket, but you have three that I trust to go get me a bucket. And it's the amount of trust. Who's ever playing well? I mean, you look at last night's game. Emmanuel Sharp gets you 12. Milos Uzan only had 7. It's not like Milos Uzan was going out and just dominating the game, right? But you had LJ Cryer get you 30. Sharp gets you 12. Okay. Malik Wilson, how many did Malik have? Hold on. Malik gets you 3.
I remember for the longest time, our only bench point was when Javier split those free throws in the first half.
Yeah. So there's a guy every game who you're like, oh, he went off for 30, right? It's like, it's been Cryer lately, but in the middle part of the season, we had a couple of games where Milos was like getting 25 on people. Just and there were parts where Emmanuel Sharp would put 25 on you real quick. So who do you stop if you're a defense? Do you not let LJ Cryer score? Don't let Emmanuel Sharp start seeing open threes. That guy's a spot up shooter who will kill you, right? Gonzaga took the guards away in the first part of the second half. What'd you do? Wani, go get us buckets. Go get us some buckets, Wani. JoJo, go get us a couple of buckets. That's something this program hasn't had, is a level of scoring depth that we currently have right now. And that's what makes me believe in this team more than any team that I have seen before.
First 10 minutes of that second half, one of the things I texted you at halftime was, again, somebody here needs to step up besides Cryer. I expect someone will, but somebody has to. And like within the first 10 minutes of the second half, that was like Wani announced his presence. Like, and you've been trying to get him involved in the first half, but very much saw kind of the plans late in the first half come to fruition there in the first 10 minutes or so in the second. Going against a Gonzaga team, good offensive rebounding team, very good at keeping opponents off the glass, won the battle on the glass. Like, again, a reminder of when this team is doing that well, like how hard they are to be as well. No guy responsible for that as much as JoJo Tugler. Like truly, and also I think reminding you that he's not right now the guy who's going to be someone who you expect to go to for a bucket. Mm-hmm. Although I think he's better there than we probably give him credit for, just again, because he's surrounded by more high quality offensive players than any Cougar big man of the Kelvin Sampson era has been. Like there's never been more options besides JoJo Tugler, which I think masks the fact that if this had been JoJo Tugler put into an earlier U of H team, we would have been talking about him the same way, but with a higher athletic ceiling than we talked about, like Fabian White, like after his sophomore year or something like that. Like in terms of being able to have a low post offensive game, he flashed that bit in this one. I wanted to tee you up for this. What were your thoughts on the JoJo flagrant? And I have something to dovetail off that. I'm not to like, we're not doing an ESPN embrace debate here, but something I thought the Cougars overcame that tangentially relates to this call here.
I think so. Whenever something like this happens, I tend to go, if I was the other team, how would I feel about this if they didn't call it my way? I think in real time it didn't look as bad as it did when it was slow-mo. Like sometimes slow-mo makes things look worse, but also will make them look not as bad. When you slow that one down, JoJo does not look like he's preparing to get into the post with a guy. He looks like he's trying to body check a guy to like intimidate him, and it looked unnecessary in slow-mo. I get where it was. You could say he was trying to get ready for the post and he's just trying to get a little physical. But I will tell you, if I was a Gonzaga fan and you didn't call that a flagrant, I probably would have been pissed off. I thought you had an argument for a 1. I think if it was a 2, I would have thrown something at my TV. But a 1 there, if that happens to JoJo on the other end, I'm probably going, that's got to be a flagrant. So I can see it.
Yeah, and I think if you look back at this game, and also this is the thing that I kind of alluded to a moment ago before I threw to you. The crew chief in this game was Pat Adams, who called two of your early season losses, the 2 games in Vegas you lost, the Bama game and the weekend finale against San Diego State. And Pat Adams is the fucking guy who called that foul on Sharp that I think our co-host emeritus. I mean, I'm still annoyed about it. I think our co-host emeritus Dustin is still like seething hot about it because it was an awful call. So with that guy in the crew, you kind of look back on, you're like, well, and like I saw people complaining about it online. Like I think if I was watching it and I didn't have any emotional attachment to either team, I would be like, yeah, I'm expecting this to get called flagrant.
Yep.
And I think with this guy in the crew, which I would say also, like, I'm not someone who, I'm not a ref blamer here. I'm not just like I don't think Pat Adams goes to sleep at night like angry that he didn't cost Houston a chance to go to the Sweet 16. But I would also say he's somebody, whether by his preferred play style or just some subconscious, just like, I think Houston fouls more than my colleagues choose to call on them or something like that. I don't know. You overcame that as well. I do think it's very rich, Bobby, that and I agree with you. Like we talked about this before the show. I agree with your point that you shouldn't expect a call late on some of the situations where Gonzaga was able to muck things up for you. I thought Milos got hit on the arm a few times there. And I think it's very rich that Pat Adams was willing to do a game swinging call against us in the Bama game, that call on Sharp, but like swallowed his whistle in some situations where I don't know. I'm
always going to push back on this idea that Pat Adams doesn't like us for some reason. Like, why would he not call a foul there? Like,
why would he not call a foul there then? Like, this guy who loves to fucking call fouls, this guy who calls a half a foul more on average per game than his colleagues. Why'd he want to swallow his whistle there? This guy who loves
it's not some conspiracy against
U of H. It is. I'm not saying
I am down to say Pat Adams is a shitty ref. Sure.
I'm saying you overcame my broader point is you overcame somebody who
is a bad ref.
Is a bad ref. And also that's one of those things when we talked about like what worries us about like tournament early exits, you get the wrong ref. You get the wrong ref of this team. You got the wrong ref last night, and you still, again, while not perfect, you allowed 11-1 run over the final few minutes to make this thing way more interesting than it should have been. You overcame that. I'm not saying.
And
I'm not saying Pat Adams has a conspiracy here.
I think for me, those end of game traps that they were running, did Milos maybe get fouled in it? Sure. Was he hit on the arm a couple of times? Maybe. I was too busy going, get rid of the fucking ball, get rid of to pay attention if he was getting hit. Allowing your 2 guards to get trapped, that's more troubling for me than Pat Adams not calling the foul, than anyone not calling a foul, than any call that happened. It's more concerning to me that my guards are allowing themselves to get trapped like that in the half court to a point where it becomes 11-1 run, and you're turning the ball over. You're trying to use timeouts. You're getting called for over and backs. That is way more concerning to me. Yes, Milos might have been fouled there. It will always be concerning to me when I'm watching my guards not be able to break a trap in the half court for 4 straight possessions. That's a concern. They kind of showed that U of H, if you're up on them, trap them. And you would think maybe you're able to break that in a week. Maybe that's something we're working on. But little things like that get on film start to build up, and teams get. You've noticed ever since, I can't remember what game it was. It might have been Arizona State, where they started bringing pressure early on up court and running. I wouldn't call it a full court press, but there was some full court pressure. I think it was against Arizona State. And we showed we were having a little bit of a hard time. It happened against Baylor, where we were going up against the deadline of getting it across half court. Teams started to do that. You see that more from U of H opponents now. It gets on tape and teams start to pay attention to it. And maybe they're not going to run it all the time. But if Purdue gets into a spot where they're down 10 with sub 4 minutes to go and they start trapping, I hope we're better prepared. Would I hope that a referee maybe calls a foul if there's one there? Sure. But I want to know that they can break that trap more than I want to depend on the referee to call the foul there.
Don't disagree with any of that. Just say again, very annoying that, again, this guy who clearly has no problem is very much, and for better or worse, very much of the, like, it's a foul anytime I see it and it's called, like, that generally doesn't like to swallow his whistle just based on his tendency to call fouls, compared to his colleagues. That this was the time he's like, no, I'm just going to play. That's all. I just found that annoying. Like, but the root cause here is Pat Adams being a shitty ref with some kind of weird ref ego. Like, that's the solution here.
He definitely has that.
Not any kind of broader, like, anti-U of H thing.
Yeah. Well, Sam, do we want to talk at least for a minute? Actually, hold on. I need to give somebody some shine real quick.
Let's get some shine real quick.
I think I texted you at when things were starting to get close. It was probably 7 or 8 points. And I think I texted you and I said, here comes Malik. Malik Wilson had probably, I'd argue, one of the biggest, if not biggest, rebounds of the season for U of H this year. 52 seconds left in the game. Cougs up 4, which I don't know why I didn't realize we were still up 2 baskets. It was a 2-possession game under a minute. It didn't feel like it, right? Malik Wilson, LJ Cryer comes in, misses a 3. Malik goes under, sneaks around the back, gets the board there. And it almost felt like that, with that rebound, that it kind of deflated the entire Gonzaga defense. So Malik grabs this offensive rebound. It's a 4-point game, misses the front end, and you're going, Malik, I need 1 here, brother. I need 1. Get me 1. Subs happen. Malik makes it. And that right there is, it kind of felt like game there, as weird as that sounds. Even though it got cut down to 1, Khalif Battle makes the free throw. It just felt good to see Malik Wilson make that free throw and Malik Wilson get that rebound. That rebound was huge. And you see 3 points on the ledger and you go, what did he do? 5 boards, including probably, like I said, the biggest one right there with the way Gonzaga was scoring. I think they had probably made 5 of their last 6 or 5 of their last 7, something like that. They were going down and getting easy buckets. They go down, they score there, whether it's a 3 or 2. It's suddenly a 1-possession game from there. You feel a lot different about it if you're a Houston Cougar fan there.
No doubt. I think Malik Wilson coming up at a key moment shouldn't be any surprise to anyone. Like, there's a reason he's on the court there. Like, you need if nothing else, that in a tough moment, his defense, his rebounding, his ability to get a loose ball. Like, would you like him to be a little bit better at free throw shooting? You would, but like the other things are very important too. I think really, if there's any one player I'm disappointed with their performance this game, we keep seeing Terrence Arsenault. He'll break out in these games against like lesser opponents and be like, oh yeah, like I think he was really good in that opening Big 12 tournament over Colorado. Was pretty good against SIUE. We'll get to that game here in a sec. And just completely anonymous in this game. Didn't do anything of note. And I think that he should be your answer but hasn't, like, he should be the answer to guy that's not Emmanuel Sharp and LJ Cryer, who you have out there for an end of game scenario, because let's just be honest, like JoJo Tugler, J1 Roberts, those are two guys who are too bad of free throw shooters to be both out there at the same time in end of game situations right now. But Terrence Arsenault, like the answer to that question feels like it's Terrence Arsenault, and you go with a slightly small ball lineup, but he hasn't been a reliable enough free throw shooter. He hasn't been a reliable enough of a player, period, to give you that. And I feel like that would solve a lot of end game problems this team has if he was a bit more reliable of a scorer, a bit more reliable. Like, I'm not punting on Terrence Arsenault's future here. It's just in these kind of scenarios, this is where you need him the most, and he hasn't been able to give that to you yet. No time like the present. There would be a great time for Terrence Arsenault to have his best 4-game run as a Houston Cougar, but he is to me the answer to a question, but that he's supposed to be the answer to this question, but unfortunately, just his on-court play hasn't justified it. Yeah, that's I'm not trying to single him out, anything like that for his however many minutes in this game, but that's one of those I'm waiting for this guy to break out.
Yeah, I can't argue with anything you said there.
But I don't want to end this also on end this game that ended the longest Sweet 16 streak in the country and made your Houston Cougars now the team that has been to at least the Sweet 16, longer than anyone in the sport. Just consistency that I don't know if we will appreciate until this era ends, because I don't want to blow anyone's mind here. Probably not going to make the Sweet 16 every year until we all perish, or your earth turns into it would be cool. Like, I hope I'm wrong. I hope each year that pronouncement becomes more and more badly aged, but like, just taking it for granted that we obviously the goal isn't the Sweet 16 this year. Spoiler to my early thoughts, I actually feel decent about how we match up against Purdue, less stressed than I did about Gonzaga, even though both very good teams. But I think just we should appreciate it. Not to go all appreciate that. Even if the win was a little stressful at the end, it was never going to be easy to beat this opponent. There are things you definitely need to work on and definitely need to get better at to be the last team or one of the last teams standing in this bracket. But also the things you were good at, you might be better at them than just about anybody left. And that's a really cool place to be. And that's kind of where I am after this win over Gonzaga.
Yeah, It's hard not to be excited about where this program is and what this team is looking like.
So we also had a slightly less dramatic, but thankfully for us, because you saw online, like, Sharks, to chum when Auburn struggled against Alabama State. Like, people were just like, ooh, he's like in the 16th seed. And I'm very grateful, Bobby. We've never had to live through even like a half of just like, is Houston going to be the 1 seed that like flirts with getting taken down by, are you going to be Purdue against Fairleigh Dickinson? Are you going to be Virginia against UMBC? And that was never, like, literally, it was clear from about the first media timeout that there's one team that's going to win this game. It was not the Cougars from Edwardsville. It was the Cougars from Houston. What are your biggest thoughts about the 78-40 opening round win over the SIUE Cougars, Bobby?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. I started to get a little concerned, not during the game, but like pregame, I was kind of like, I don't know, man. Rayshon Taylor could go off for like 30 if they just like find ways to get him the ball. Like, I don't think anyone else could, but like Rayshon Taylor, and I was kind of listening to some other college basketball podcasts, right? And you hear a couple of people like, Rayshon Taylor's P4 level player. He's a P4 level player, and you're kind of like, let's see. They are a 16 seed, but at the same time, and then he comes out and shoots 3 for 13. And this is not to be like Rayshon Taylor's actually garbage. It's just like, dude, it's gotta suck playing U of H, man. It's gotta just suck. It's gotta suck so hard. Do you realize, Sam, that in this game, if U of H did not score in the entire second half, we would have won by double digits?
Hold on. Yeah, because we had 52 at halftime. That's right. Yeah, it's 52-24 at halftime. That's right.
We would have won by double digits.
Crazy.
Like, could you imagine having to play this team? Like, it's insane.
It's just a reminder also, like, not that not that the level SIUE plays at isn't like, it's like if you dropped an average 18 to 24-year-old rec player in the middle of, an OVC game, it would become clear within a matter of moments, like, who is the out of play. Like, it's still a high level of basketball. Like, I remember I can't remember if it was you or me or you and multi-time F1 podcast co-host Bill, somehow me and some other friend of that era, which might have been you, were you courtside with me, U of H SMU in 2008 at Hawthines?
Courtside? No.
We like the Stinsons. The Stinsons came over and gave us the two tickets.
Oh, I remember this. I wasn't there.
That's right.
I think I was there, but y'all took the tickets. Like, I remember I didn't have. Yeah, I think it was you and Dustin.
Sorry, I was gonna say. Sorry if you're the friend that was not Dustin. I forgot. But like at the time, U of H SMU, like U of H was like doing okay for Conference USA. SMU wasn't especially a good Conference USA team. You just watch the speed of the game up close, and you're just like, oh my god! Like these guys, even on two very non-tournament teams, are absolute freaks. It's all a roundabout way of saying nothing SIUE could have simulated U of H. Like again, playing high level D1 opponents, relative to the average person versus high level D1 opponents relative to the average like D1 basketball team. It's a whole different kettle of fish. Like this is, it was clear once U of H was making shots early to me. Like I thought the only scenario here where this got uncomfortable is if U of H just came out, like, not that we've seen it very often, but we've seen it not 0 times, just come out really cold, and the 16 seed just playing out of their skin gets a little confidence. That was the only recipe I could see early on. You just come out cold, your opponent's just feeling it. Like SIUE is a pretty salty defensive team for their level, so that was the scenario here, and you came out on fire shooting. Like it was very clear. Like once it was obvious that they weren't going to be able to stop whatever U of H wanted to do offensively, that was it for me. Like, I don't know what our defensive effort today was going to look like. In this case, it looked extremely effective. And, SIUE scored 12 fewer points for the entire game than you did the first half. Like, that's how decisive this was. You had during the second half, this is my favorite stat about this game, when you had pretty much like, I think before the game, it was just like, okay, like let's get Ced Lott and Cordell Jefferson some serious minutes here. Like let's get these guys in. Let's not use our starters. And this game ended up being, I think, the best case scenario in terms of like you got to see Jalen Roberts back out there. Looked like he was moving around okay. You got some confidence back that, hey, the Big 12 injury was more precautionary versus, hey, this guy might have a fucked up ankle for the rest of the tournament. That kind of deal. Like you found out everything you wanted to find out health-wise positively. And you got to have this extended end of bench time. And this extended end of bench time, you missed 15 of 16 shots. And there was one point earlier on where I think you could see, like you cut to Samson and he was like, mercy. Like you would see him mouthing, mercy, 1 for 14. Basically telling him that we've been shooting 1 for 14 since you've been out there as the point guard.
Yep. But
you were still defending at such a high level. It didn't matter that you were like 1 of 16 for a stretch in the second half. Like this was still like a laugher.
I mean, heck, this is going to sound really bad, but like the second half of that game, I was mainly on my phone. You're just kind of watching and the team's just you just put a bunch of guys out there and it looked sloppy at times. It didn't look great. It wasn't the most entertaining basketball game watching it. You're just kind of like, well,
I thought, look, I wouldn't want to watch nothing but this, but like it's been a while since we've seen U of H absolutely curb stomp someone and not have it be like a non-conference game where I was like, oh, okay, congrats for doing that to Hofstra or something.
Yeah. But it was just very much just one of those games. The whole second half, I was just kind of like, well, this one's over. Like,
yeah, it was like I want to not to completely crib a social media post. So if anyone's not on Blue Sky, they get this one. Javier Francis in this one looked like he was playing in like a camp counselor versus kids game, but he was the counselor who was just like, I'm dunking, like I'm taking this thing seriously. I'm not going easy on any of the campers. Like the way Javier Francis was treating SIUE big men It was like
like-
disrespectful and very funny, but not in an unsportsmanlike way.
Yeah, like teachers versus students when the students have been talking smack all year and the teachers are like,
And like one
All
teacher
right.
played D2 basketball and was like pretty decent. He's like, all
And they're
right,
just-
yeah.
and they're and then another guy played in high school, like the point guard played in high school, and he's just lobbing it to the D2 guy who's just like windmilling it on 8th graders, and you're just like, oh no. when you
13,
sent
yeah.
that, I was like, that's funny. That is exactly what it looked like.
But I was just watching him, and like the Cougars were doing, like every Cougar was doing well out there. Like it wasn't just the Javier Francis show, but like the way he specifically, like the way he was getting to the basket, and like there was barely anyone else there. It was also a reminder that you put Javier Francis on a lot of Division I teams. He's not just like, okay, like one, he's a starting big man, all conference, whatever. But like he's also probably more of a go-to offensive option. He's gotten a lot better there, and we don't see it because there are so many good shot makers around Javier Francis. Because you're not going to be like feeding Javier the ball 10 to 15 times a game when you have J1, when you have LJ, when you have Emmanuel Sharp, when you have guys who are going to be better, like more sure things. But this guy is still quite like 13 points, 8 boards in 15 minutes. And even that I don't think conveys just how unbelievably dominant he was every second he was on the floor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, you beat SIUE. You should have beaten SIUE by a comfortable margin, but I think not lost on us that the Cougars...
You won by 38.
Yeah. The like, the NCAA tournament is going to be stressful. Like, most of these games... Like, you hope you have as many of these stressful games as possible. Man, you hope the first one, though, is not that. The first one is kind of just okay, let's see our guys do some cool stuff against a team that... God bless them in the special scissors coach that unfortunately had to end their season today.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of look around and the scores of the 1 seeds were certainly blowouts, but like Auburn at a time in this game, not that they were worried they were going to lose, but they were like up 10 at the half. There was a point where this game late in the first half was like 34-31 with like a minute left to go in the first half. Like they're barely up. Like we didn't have to deal with that. You know what I mean? And I'll take that all day, every day.
You weren't the 16 seed that everyone was just like, is it going to happen to them this year? And that's really all you hope for. All right, really quick. We're going to do a full preview of Purdue on our regular podcast this week, coming here in a couple days, talk about all the non-U of H men's basketball happenings, including a baseball team that might have given us just the faintest bit of hope again with a road series win. But Bobby, briefly about, and you're just like, you're asking about something I have no notes on. What's the one word when I say Purdue basketball, your next opponent, and why?
Ooh, that's tough. I would say it's got to be one word.
We'll do like
home court advantage.
Home court advantage.
I really don't like the fact that we as a 1 seed get a top 10 KenPom team in the round of 32. And then we go to Indianapolis, which is like an hour from Purdue's campus. I think that is such horseshit. Like, I'm okay if you get screwed on one or the other. You got to play Gonzaga. Their resume makes them a 9 seed. It sucks. It happens. Like, why would you put Purdue as a 4 seed in the Midwest? That doesn't even make sense. They're a 4 seed. There's no way that you're like, oh, well, surely the 4 seed won't make the Sweet 16. Oh, wait, no, that's exactly what you expect the 4 seed to do, is make the Sweet 16. Don't put them where they get a home game against the 1 seed in the Sweet 16. It's absurd. The way this bracket is fall, like, give us one or the other. Like, you want to put us against, you want to put us against Gonzaga. Okay, don't make Purdue our 4 seed in Indianapolis. Or if you want to give us Purdue as don't make Gonzaga our round of 32 game. I know that there's different things that they got to look at and travel and all this kind of stuff, and you got to think of these things though. If you're the committee, you can't screw your one, because there's a point where you can't tell a 1 seed they have to do more. Right? Like, if you screw over a 2 seed or a 3 seed by putting Gonzaga as their second round game, like, do more. Be a 1 seed. You don't want to play Purdue in Indianapolis be the 1 seed. But you've done that to us. Like, it would have been better for us in terms of like the way you look at who we played to be the 2 seed.
I love the idea of us as a 1 seed that has been one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the country, still being able to go into this game with Samson, be like, everyone in that building's going to be against you. You didn't play well at the end against Gonzaga. Like, you know, like you're not going to be getting too high on your supply as a player when Kelvin's pointing out how bad the end went at Gonzaga. Believe me, like, this has been from Kelvin and assistant coaches pointed out to the guys, like, how they didn't finish this game off.
Yeah.
And to be able to, as a 1 seed, still be like, hey, like, we gotta go in their building. Like, that's been a spot this team has been so good in this season, and I would say especially the last 2 months. Like, you've won in some really hostile buildings.
Yep.
This year.
Oh yeah.
So my 2-word thing, since we're going past 1 word, is interior offense, or we'll say post offense. I'm going to correct that to post offense because Purdue is one of the worst teams in the country at keeping opponents from scoring inside. You got one guy who's extremely good there in Wani Roberts, and you've seen things from Tugler and Francis there at times too. You're gonna need to be able to score inside against this opponent. Like, that's gonna be something you probably need to do to win anyway. But that's my early thought. Like, that was my first thing when I looked at Purdue and like their resume is just like, we need to be able to score inside against them.
Yeah,
but. More on the Boilermakers later this week. More on the Houston Cougar happenings that weren't men's basketball later this week. Bobby, take us home.
Guys, that is it for this kind of instant-ish react podcast where Sam and I actually both discussed that we had no notes for this. We just kind of wanted to discuss how we felt about the games that we saw over the weekend. We appreciate you guys listening to every episode of this, listening the whole way through. We just spent 45 minutes talking about 2 basketball games, and we're still going to drop another podcast later this week. We thank you guys so much for your time. If you have any feedback for us, you can find us on social media, podcast.bsky.social, SH Podcast on Twitter. If you want to email us your feedback, you can always reach us at shpodcast@gmail.com. And most importantly to Sam and I, find us on Patreon at SH Podcast. Just go to patreon.com/SH Podcast for as little as $5 a month. You can get some really cool premium content that we do during the summer, all that kind of stuff. So we're looking forward to talking more Cougar sports later this week. And Sam, as we always say,
go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs. Let's go.